Welcome to Bell Folks Stuff, an experimental podcast where I talk to interesting folks about really important stuff that they enjoy doing. Let's get started. Hey everybody, this is a situation where I don't have a fixed intro. Kind of like at this point, I know the AgriChat intro so well, and I rattle it off each week, and like there are probably people out there that think that that's just a recording that gets looped in, but no, it's not. And my guest today can absolutely attest to that.
It's true.
So, hi Tam.
Hello.
So Tam is obviously so for this series run, I am doing one-on-ones with folks that I record AgriChat with every week. And I have known Tam for a really freaking long time. We've known each other since the early days of World of Warcraft. And
oh man, yeah.
Somewhere between the release of Blackwing Lair and Encourage is really when we began to know each other. We were both in the same raiding guild that was started by a friend of mine from other games, and then Tam joined that, and then later I joined that. And at first I was just monitoring, keeping the forum up and running, and then at some point I joined the raid. So there are times where I have this back and forth and trying to pinpoint how we know each other, but this was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, we raided together. It wasn't even really that complicated.
Yeah, and Tam will swear otherwise, but he was the rogue lead for this raid.
God.
And he also did a lot of the behind the scenes leadership type tasks. How old were you at that point?
Me, it was I would have been 19.
Wow.
I was by behind the scenes stuff, what Bell means is that I was basically HR. I basically was the soft side of the raid leadership. And so I was morale officer and recruiting person, and
yeah, it was just funny because Shiana, the lead, maybe doesn't always have the best bedside manner.
No.
Not for soft skill conversations.
Right. Well, that's why I ended up doing it. No, it was actually a reasonably balanced leadership while it was stable. Because Shiana's super, super, super organized and just very good at systems and making sure that everything is ticking along the way it ought to be from a macro level. Right.
And also with the strategery and
yeah, and really good at taking something complex and explaining it in a digestible, easily broken down way. It's look, if you're X, do Y, which is really important. We've got 40 people. And then you had Belden, who, not to be confused with you.
Though the funny thing about it is kind of the role that Belden played is oftentimes kind of one of the roles that I play.
It's true.
The monkey wrench.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of that, and also he was Mr. Tactics. He would sit and study fights, and figure out how to do it optimally, and adapt the strategies to our raid group, and so on. He's definitely a loudmouth, and got himself into trouble more often than was necessary. But also, he's got a very technical mind, and was very good at synthesizing these are all of the abilities that are happening. These are all of the things that are going on. Here's how we improve. And basically, as soon as we got him to stop shouting that stuff and saying what he was seeing privately so that we could then synthesize it, things ticked along pretty well.
So yeah, I guess for me, when I started raiding with Late Night Raiders, I was very much attending the alt nights. And as a result, I think I was seeing a different side of a lot of these characters because, at that point, I don't know if... I assume y'all had already had all of Molten Core on farm by then.
Maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember
we had beaten all of Molten Core, and we did so more or less regularly.
Right, and at that point, you were in... Okay, so when I started with Molten Core was when you guys were in the Gulf of Razor Gore, I think. Wasn't that the one you were stuck on forever?
We were stuck on Firemaw for ages.
Firemaw, maybe. Like, I think you were in that period, because like I remember some of the conversations from the first couple of Molten Cores were really clearing while strategizing about how to take down Firemaw. But like people were sick and tired of Molten Core at that point, so like I really didn't get to see the full experience until we probably started on AQ40, because like that's the point at which I was caught up to where the raid was caught up.
Yeah,
and was actually doing new fights with the raid.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it took that long for you to be doing the new stuff with us.
Yeah, because for a really long time, I wasn't around the night you killed Nefarian for the first time. Like, I think I was on voice, but I wasn't in the raid.
Oh, okay.
Because, like, I don't think I was geared enough at that point, because, like, I was still finishing my Giant Stalker set.
Oh, that might be the case, yeah.
And, you know, Shiana tells me that basically I got a raid slot because there was a hunter he didn't like.
That was, I mean, that was sort of the early story of LNR. And kind of, honestly, kind of what I was doing was there was a whole lot of churn, and I was really good at, or I found out that I was reasonably good at convincing people to stick around if they were good and we wanted to keep them, and like smoothing over ruffled feathers. And that wound up just being my official position for a while.
Yeah, and I think that's the aspect of this that's different than a lot of my experiences post early World of Warcraft. Is like back then it was a situation of, I think, you know, Shiana started to cobble this together out of all of the people on the server that were actually functionally capable of doing raid content. Not, I'm going to pick my favorite people and go do raid content.
Yeah. No, it was literally, I mean, for months, we would shout in Ironforge to fill our raid and then go.
Yeah, because like I had the same experience later when I took over No Such Raid, because it was the same experience. Like, it was, okay, we're doing tier 6 content. Who the hell maybe has a key? Because like we're short people. And you just kind of went with whoever actually was capable of zoning into Black Temple.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Tam and I first raided together back in early Vanilla WoW, and then like after that time period, there's really not been a time when we haven't been in communication, like in one form or another. Like, I think how we all stayed together was through it, like an AOL instant messenger group chat. And I don't even know how that worked to set up, but I got invited to it. And then from that point on, I got random messages at all hours of the night.
Yeah, I mean, so like I can actually fill in the sort of interim gap there, because shortly after the launch of Burning Crusade, Shiana checked out of LNR because it kind of fell apart. Like it was sort of tenuously held together, and the raid apocalypse design changes in Burning Crusade was just too much to manage, and the whole thing pretty much fell apart. And I didn't get out of it fast enough and wound up being kind of the last member of the leadership standing. And I tried to hold it together for a while, and like it got me really burned out. Now,
did y'all go to Silverhand at that point?
Shiana did. I didn't.
Okay, yeah, because Silverhand was one of the weirdities of the history of my attempt to play World of Warcraft is that we had a bunch of people at launch, and some people really liked Alliance, the majority, and they were on Argent Dawn, and the handful that really loved the Horde were on Silverhand. And as a result, like, a lot of Shiana's friends ended up on Silverhand, whereas he ended up on Argent Dawn playing the Night Elf character that he really wanted to play.
Yeah.
So there was this weird fractured community over there, and they didn't have enough people to survive on their own, so like they merged into several other guilds to eventually get to the point where there are enough people. And like I remember kind of keeping tabs on that. So like I know when he went over there, but I didn't know if you followed him or if you were somewhere else.
No, I stayed on Argent Dawn because that was where like all of my stuff was and all of my everybody I knew. And like I sort of later context, like in retrospect, I understand Shannon's perspective. It was like this raid that I was running that was the reason I was staying here and not playing with my friends or my other friends is kind of all falling apart. I have a whole group of friends that I could just join and then it would be way less stressful. So we did. And it was honestly kind of what I did is like I left WoW for almost half a year and came back basically to play Horde very casually with my like college roommate and, you know, some people I knew from college and like my girlfriend at the time and her group of friends, you know, all pretty casual players. But I was ready to be done with WoW and came back to it there. And the thing that I remember was I came back, like I didn't touch my characters in Argent Dawn for the better part of a year. And I logged back in and I don't really even remember why. I think I logged in to do some role playing. And like what I had left behind was kind of a smoking ruin. But what I'd found was that a surprising number of people had then rolled into House Stalwart.
Yeah, because like we kind of became the life raft. You know, because like anybody that was super hardcore and serious, well, they went to one of the big guilds.
Yeah.
And what left was this group of people that were good-natured and wanted to do stuff, but like weren't maybe the highest skill player. And that was us. And then we went through a series of events. Like I tried to usher as many of those people into no such raid as I could. And that was good until we hit tier 6. And then the main tank of that raid decided to leave. And then 2 weeks later, the leader of that raid decided to quit. And I was basically third in command and it fell into my lap. And I was left trying to manage this dying raid. And there was a period of time where I contemplated joining Lodi, Legacy of the Illuminati, because I had friends over there. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I'm a T6 ready tank. I could just join them and raid. But a mutual friend of ours, Daggeransis, was like, man, I really miss LNR. I want to create another LNR. And I allowed myself to get talked into it. And Dagger and Thalen and I and a friend of ours at the time, Elnor, all kind of built this raid in honor of LNR. And like I remember there was a thing that Shiana would occasionally say where he would call LNR a durable pack of noobs.
Oh yeah.
And we named our raid Duranub.
Yep.
And it was real frustrating though, because like we basically I was someone who was doing tier 6, and then all of a sudden I had to back to tier 4 to get people caught up. And like I got to feel what a lot of the people that had been raiding with me in LNR were feeling when they were doing the Molten Core runs. Like, yeah, it's like, this is content that I can do in my sleep. It was real miserable until Wrath of the Lich King came out and we actually were all on the same page again.
Well, I mean, and that was sort of the thing that happened in late BC. I had some friends from college who were like kind of interested and had just gotten to max level, so I like brought them into Karazhan. And like I think I created a monster in Elian in so doing. But like,
well, this is also kind of the story of Ash, isn't it?
Yeah. And what happened was when I then burned out severely, a few people who had followed us around and had been like wanted to do some raiding sort of came together in Wrath. And that was because like Kodra had left to raid with some Horde friends of his. And then I think he moved I think that was right around the time that he moved and kind of lost touch, or like wasn't hanging out with them quite as much anymore immediately post college. And because I know that was like about the time he moved cross country. I don't know if that was related, but I got the impression that it was at least somewhat related. And there were like, it was just a handful of, it was like the people that I'd met through my girlfriend at the time, Ash, some other people we'd met, and we kind of put together our own like little 10-man. And I taught some people to raid, and like I can take some credit for it, but a lot of that work was done by people who just were like interested and willing to learn and got good. Like we cleared all the way through Arthas, if memory serves.
Yeah, like a lot of the time with Wrath, I was going through something similar to where I had a 10-person raid that I really, really enjoyed. And then there was our 25-plus person raid that was very trying.
And that was about the point where like there was that gap, the like half gap between the end of Burning Crusade and when we started hanging out with you, because that was when we put together that AIM chat. And I still don't remember, like we found out it was interesting because we put it together and got it going, and then like AOL sunset that functionality but didn't turn off existing groups, so we couldn't. It was this really incredibly delicate thing because
like, I think Ash figured out a way to get new people in, but it was like a contorted process.
Yeah, we had this really, we could get new people in, but we couldn't recreate it and we couldn't manage it. Like all of those tools were just gone. But there wasn't anything else that we liked that worked, so we just stuck with it. And it was this nice, I mean, it was just like, even though we're not all in the same place, we can still chat. And so it was like our group of closest people.
And in truth, like that stuck around until we heard AOL was just totally being sunset, and we went and found Slack.
Yeah.
And like that's only within like the last 5 or so years that, I mean, realistically, it's within the time that we started recording AggroChat that we stopped using that chat. So like it lasted a decade and a half.
It lasted a real long time. Because we moved to Slack. We did move to Slack after. Yeah, we moved to Slack after we had started recording the podcast. And I think that if it had taken a little bit longer to sunset, we would all be on Discord.
Right, because Discord wasn't really a thing yet at that point.
No. Whereas Slack was a functional thing and it gave us everything we needed.
But the problem is now that we're super used to the way that Slack works, it's real hard to uproot and move to Discord.
Yeah.
Like even though Discord has some functionality that might have been nicer, it's just super hard to like stop one thing and start using the other thing.
Yeah, it's hard to get people to move over. And like Discord has a bunch of stuff that I don't know. Discord doesn't really work on my system very well. Like I can use it to chat, but it doesn't have the granularity and stuff that I want.
I feel like the problem that I have with Discord, at least from a text-based chat, is it's nowhere near as clean of an interface as Slack.
Right.
It is not as easy on the eye either. Like it's a very jarring interface. So like I am way more likely to use it for voice chat than I am for text chat. But also, like the number one problem that I have with Slack is its weird pricing scheme.
Yeah. Oh yes, absolutely. Like I wish I could give Slack some money, but there's no way to do it.
I mean, its model is entirely based upon an enterprise group using it, and there's not like if they had a not-for-profit model that you could license, it would be better, because like there's a lot of stuff that we're missing because we don't have the full-blown thing, and like we have to constantly delete images and stuff to keep underneath the 5 gigabyte limit.
Yeah. And yeah, it was, yeah. And I feel like I agree. Like I'm more likely to use Discord for voice related things, but because Discord's voice functionality doesn't work for my hardware setup, I just don't. It's never really caught on with me.
So the funny thing about like the AOL chat and the Slack, that's, you know, basically a private Slack for just the folks who do AggroChat and the immediate orbit thereof, is during the AOL days, like, because we couldn't manage that group, you had to be like super careful with who you invite, because like they're basically always going to be in this thing. There's no way to remove them. And as a result, we've kind of had the same attitude towards Slack. And, you know, the TeamSpeak that we record AgriChat on. And because of that, like, I'm always super cautious just to give people any of that information. Whereas, like, it's so easy to create a disposable Discord for a side venture that, like, I don't have to worry about, like, I gave somebody the keys to the kingdom. Because my mindset still thinks of, like, the AOL group days, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I know the answer more or less to this, but, like, it's one of those things that people usually find interesting. How'd you get your handle, Tam?
This isn't even a good story.
No, it's really not.
It's like, my handle is just a syllabic variation of my last name. It's got the same cadence. I use some different consonants. It was like in all honesty, I was like 8 or 9 and I was like 8 or 9 and getting on the internet. And the warning that I got about going on the internet was don't use your real name. And I've never been that creative with naming. And I forget the names I make up all the time anyway. So I just made a variant of my actual name and have kept it ever since because it's like broadly fairly distinctive.
And I assume at the time you were playing a lot of Elder Scrolls?
No.
It has nothing to do with Tamrielo?
Absolutely not at all. It's funny. So one of my mentors in college was Christopher Weaver, who was pretty involved in early Bethesda, and I think we compared notes at one time because he thought it was funny. And like I think that either my name predates Elder Scrolls by a couple of months, or they were right around the same time.
Yeah, the same thing happened to, like, there's another blogger out there that uses the name Joseph Skyrim, and it has nothing to do with Elder Scrolls at all.
Yeah, like the first Elder Scrolls game wasn't even until 1994, and I've been using Tamrielo since like, oh god, a long time. BBCs? That's not the right word.
BBSs?
BBSs.
Yeah, I've always found that hilarious that you then turned around and worked on Elder Scrolls Online.
I mean, it got me into some really awkward conversations with our like legal team.
Yeah.
Which was super weird. But yeah, like
what cracks me up though is like, okay, so you and I are about 10 years apart in age. And you just said the thing that like we lived and died by on the early days of the internet, that never give anyone your real information.
Yeah.
And now we turn around to today and it feels super weird that like all of these companies like almost forbid you from not using your real information. Because like it's just ingrained in me that like the internet is a dangerous place and don't give anybody your actual information.
Yeah, and for me it wasn't so much the internet is a dangerous place. It was, I don't even really know. It was more like you can be, it wasn't, for me, it was never like people are going, you know, if you give out your real name on the internet, bad stuff is going to happen to you. Like there was a little bit of that just because like that was the vibe, but that wasn't really ingrained in me so much as the internet is a place you go to not have to be yourself and to like, you know, find out who you are outside of your name or outside of the person that you are when you're not at the computer. And so if you use your real name, you're shackling yourself to who you are away from the computer on the internet, which defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, and I think I got that impression from reading a lot of the pre-internet fiction that visualized what a connected network would look like.
Yeah, and I only read any of that kind of after the fact, usually on the internet.
So what is your earliest gaming memory that you have?
That's a weird one because I have two. I think the very earliest gaming memory I have, I used to go to a buddy's house, and we're still friends now. He was like a year older than me, I think, and he had an NES with Mega Man. And I would go over and we would play Mega Man, by which what I actually mean is I would watch while he played Mega Man, because I was too scared of like messing anything up or like being bad at it or being wrong that I was perfectly content with just watching. And so like we would sit, and I remember he would offer to let me play or have me play like on the half hour, every half hour, almost like clockwork. I mean, we were friends for years. He did this for years, where like I'd come over, we'd hang out for a few hours. He'd ask if I wanted to, he would continually ask if I wanted to play. I would always be happy to just watch. And this went on for a really long time, and leads into my first memory of actually playing a game, because either his dad got him Quest for Glory 3, or my dad got his dad Quest for Glory 3, or something. Somehow Quest for Glory 3 happened as a gift, and he didn't know how to use a mouse. Like he was not familiar with a PC interface, and I was. So he didn't actually know how to make the controls happen. At which point I did, and so I did do the controlling. And that was the first game that I actually played, was Quest for Glory 3.
So did the tables basically turn and he watched you play?
So we played really, like, that was a really story-driven game, with a lot of choices. And so it was this very collaborative thing where we would solve puzzles together, and it was actually, we only played that together a little bit, but like me sitting down and actually being at the controls of the game was kind of it kind of broke the dam for me. And for him, it was like, I'll learn how to use a PC. And so he learned how to use a PC. And then he moved not that long after. And this is where my memory gets really hazy. I think that my parents knew that I went, that like I had gone over and we would play video games, and they didn't really know the details of it. And so it was like my birthday after because my birthday is in September. The summer after he moved, for my birthday, my parents got me a Super Nintendo. It's like kind of all of that. And that, you know,
so that probably would have been like 92-ish.
That sounds about right. Because like, if I delve even further back, I played a ton of flight sims before that. Because my dad flies planes, or a plane, as a kind of hobbyist thing. And before he, you know, when he had his pilot's license but like didn't own a plane because they're expensive, he would get his kicks in flight sims, and I would also play in flight sims. But like I don't know that I consider that like a gaming memory so much.
So did your dad still do the flight sim thing?
No, he doesn't really do the flight sim thing. He just flies his actual plane.
Yeah, I almost wondered if like the fact that the Xbox One X is now like capable of running a flight sim, that would maybe break down barriers. Like, because like, you know, generally speaking, if you're going to do a good flight sim, you're going to be shelling out for an expensive PC.
Yeah. Well, and that was sort of the thing, was at the time that was absolutely the case. Like my dad would get a nicer computer for himself to run flight sims on, and as a sort of form of recycling / a way to make my mom more okay with it, I would get his old computer, or I would get parts of his old computer, or whatever the case might be. And so I learned how to use a computer and do computer things from very young. You know, it would have been like 91, 92, I got my first computer. But for my dad, the like flight sims and stuff were really just a means to an end. He's pretty good at video games when he actually sits down to play them, but that's almost never. Just not something he's interested in or finds fun at all.
Okay, this one I know is going to be a fraught question, because of what we've gone through recently trying to come up with the games of the decade. But at a high level, what are some of your favorite games? And you know, since this is a challenge for you, I will accept genre of games.
Yeah, I mean, super, super, super high level. I like games that broaden my perspective. I like games that make me think about things in ways that I haven't before. And like, I want to see stories that I've never seen before. I want to see places I've never seen before. I want to do stuff I've never done before. And which is what makes this question so hard to answer. And like there's a couple of genres that are consistently fairly good at this. Stealth games for me, because I understand the core goal, but the way you go about it is so different from one to the next. And like stealth games are usually very, very big on environmental storytelling and world building. I really enjoy those because it's like I get my exploration kick as well as my puzzle solving kick. And especially in a lot of them, they're like high tension, interesting games that I don't have to kill people in.
Because you do love your clean hands playthroughs. I
do, and part of it is like I don't mind. It's like I don't mind like I'm like anti-violence in games. I certainly play plenty that are all about fighting, but for me, it's like it's a much more interesting problem to solve when you try to avoid it. So it's like RPGs and stealth games are really the big ones. But like broadly, anything that like encourages me to be creative or inspires me to be creative or shows me something I hadn't seen before or broadens my perspective or whatever, they're all like super high on the list. Surprise me and show me something new.
So if you're going to single out actual games, like one or two that you just love like forever and will always be relevant.
Gone Home. Like Gone Home is like transformative to what the idea of video games even can be. And for that, I love it. And it's a game that consistently surprised me. I also think it's like Gone Home is really, really big on there. I also think what's it called? I think Thief the Dark Project, again, because it totally changed how I thought about video games. Like what can a video game even be? I really like, let's see, what else do I really like? I really like I don't know, I obviously really like Elder Scrolls games. I've spent a lot of time in them. EverQuest and World of Warcraft and Star Wars Galaxies all have like that's what I'm looking for. Soft places in my heart. I especially love MMOs that let me and my friends, because I have a lot of friends that are all into a lot of very different things, and they're often not the same things I'm into. But when I can find a game that lets them do the things that they like while I also get to do the things that I like, and the game doesn't put a value judgment on those things, I love it. And MMOs have classically been just incredibly good at that.
And I think the problem that we've run into, and this has been kind of a challenge that we've had, is it is so rare that we're all playing the same thing, because like a lot of the nuance that used to exist in games is kind of has been sucked out, to where like the game does one thing really, really well, but like not a lot of things really, really well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and a lot of older games would do they would have a bunch of mediocre things versus one or two really excellent things. And when there's not a lot of games out, then you do play the ones that are a bunch of mediocre things because they're the games you got. And maybe you get into some of the stuff that they do that you wouldn't otherwise have been into, but it's the options you have. Whereas like now you can play a new game multiple times a week. You can play, there are more games. You could play video games as a full-time job and do only that, and you still wouldn't have enough hours in the day to play everything that comes out.
Yeah, and as a result, like if it's not a tight focused experience, it falls out of the news cycle and kind of, falls into obscurity.
Yeah, well, I mean, and if there's something that you particularly like, then you don't have to settle. Like, you don't have to settle for a mediocre version of that thing. You can do the one that's good. You could just play the ones that are good, especially if you're into a particularly common genre. But like, for the most part, there's enough games, especially over time, and as games that were popular at different times get re-released and so on, that you can if you have a particular thing that you like, you can just play good games. You don't have to settle for games that do that plus 10 other things kind of okay.
And I think the indie game space has been really good for allowing experimentation with quirky concepts.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of
like we wouldn't ever
great
have
indie games.
Well, okay, so example, something that's not released yet, Boyfriend Dungeon never would exist if it was a purely AAA product.
Oh yeah. No
like
way.
that's just not a thing that ever would have created. But like, yeah, there's room for that. Or God, what was the dad romance simulator from like a couple years ago? You know what I'm talking about? I can't think of the name of it.
Oh.
Dream Daddy, the dad dating simulator.
Right. Yes.
And I think like by the same thing, like the first game you rattled off, Gone Home, would never have existed were it not an indie.
Yeah.
And to me, like I don't hold Gone Home up as high as you do, but like it was an enjoyable experience. But what Gone Home really showed me is this is how you do old school point-and-click adventure games in a world where we can do fully 3D games. Because like that's what it reminded me of, is those, you know, Gabriel Knight style games where like you're clicking on things and you're looking for paperwork and you're piecing things together. The difference is Gone Home doesn't really have objectives per se. It's just here's a box full of interesting things for you to piece together a story, and you can go as shallow or as deep as you want to in it. It is a space for you to like inhabit.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons that I sort of think about it as transformative. Is because it doesn't have a thing popping up and saying, this is what you need to do, this is how you win. But yet you can finish that game and still feel accomplished and like you did something and it was meaningful. Okay.
So what would you change about gaming or the gaming community if you could?
Oh boy.
It's a loaded question. And I guess it doesn't have to just be one thing. It's like, just what would you change overall?
I think I would want the community to tie their identity less with the games they play. And it's kind of like broadly true of media consumption in general. And there's a bunch of stuff that kind of falls out from that. Like, you know, everything from people not celebrating inclusivity and that having to be a constant battle to people getting like outraged when some patch changes their favorite thing in their game, or some game gets delayed, or something's not the way they wanted. It's like, and it's true of, you know, all media, not just games, but I think that games, due to their interactive nature, kind of amplify it a lot. And I can't help but think of like that bit from Fight Club that's like, you are not the car you drive, you are not the contents of your wallet. Like you're more than the media you consume. And I think that's good and worth embracing. And it also means that if anything about that media changes, or if it goes in a direction that you don't like, it's not a reflection on you. If somebody doesn't like the same media you like, it's not a reflection on you. Or it doesn't have to be.
And I think the challenge with all of that is like, you can yell at a sports player on the field, but at the end of the day, you realize that is a person with like their own set of things going on. Whereas we have this habit of, especially with like games companies, of attributing intent to things that don't necessarily have intent. And because of the personal nature that we have with games, like effectively, like my playthrough of a game oftentimes is unique to me. Like it was a thing that only existed because of the inputs that I chose during the experience, and that makes it all too personal.
Yeah, like the interactive nature of games means that it's really easy to connect at a very personal level with them. And then if anything changes about that, it feels very personal. And I think that as gaming stopped being niche and became very, very mainstream, we saw that bleed into all kinds of other places. Where now it's like, oh, they canceled my favorite show, or oh, this season wasn't to my liking, it feels personal.
Yeah, and the reaction all too often is like, burn it all down.
Yeah.
If I can't have this thing I want, nobody's going to have this thing.
This hurt me, I want to destroy it.
Just to go in a completely different direction. Other than gaming, what is something that brings you joy?
Food.
Food. River.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay, so there's a bunch of things, there's a bunch of like deep core values that I really that like really resonate with me and are like my deep core values. And it's open-mindedness, noticing things, being perceptive and thoughtful about like yourself and the people around you and the things that you're doing, and creativity, as well as like creativity and having a broad perspective and like continually broadening your perspective. And food is this sort of like beautiful combination of all of those things.
It's the center of the Venn diagram.
Yeah, because it's like, because if you to go and try something that just sounds crazy, like I don't even know what I'm eating, but it's probably delicious. Like very rarely do human beings make food that isn't delicious at some level, unless they just can't. But like something that's like, oh, this is really good. It might be weird, but it's good. It's kind of that seeking surprise and seeking like a new, different experience. And one of the best ways to connect with people is through food. You know, you can bake stuff for them, you can share dinner with them, you can whatever the case may be. And there's all kinds of creativity to be had. I mean, it's all of the things that I like in my entertainment, in also something that I do, a couple of times a day.
Well, and food also acts as this amazing social grease to, elicit conversations between people.
Yeah. It's like the great, no matter who you are, you got to eat. And you probably have preferences on what you eat. And those preferences, make up who you are, and you get creative about like even people. And I've talked to people who are like, oh, I'm not really creative. Oh, I just sort of do things by the numbers. Like I'm not that interesting a person. And then they'll bake some insane cake, or like they'll express themselves through this like finely crafted meal. And it's like, oh, that doesn't count. Well, it absolutely does. It's anything you create is an expression of self, and you get better at doing things with practice. And somebody who cooks a couple of times a day, you're getting more practice cooking than a lot of people get practice on their actual hobbies.
Yeah,
you're gonna get better at it.
That weirdly feeds into the conversation from last night's show about how so many skills that that happen are learned through repetition.
Yeah, like you can't just be magically good at something. That's not how it works. Like you build skills. And that means that for anything, you're going to be bad at it for a while. And like, hell, when I started cooking, I was terrible at it, but you keep doing it. And I kept cooking because I had to eat, and I lived alone. So it wasn't like there was anybody else who was going to do it with me. Yeah. It was like, I lived alone. I didn't make enough money to eat out all the time. So I had to learn to cook because I had to eat, and I got better at it. And like, yeah, I definitely badly botched some meals along the way, but I learned from all of them. And I enjoy, I don't know, I enjoy the time. I enjoy learning stuff, and the feeling of learning stuff and picking up a new skill. And really the only time where that happens is when I'm bad at something. Like you got to be bad at something to notice yourself getting better at it. And so I really enjoy the time where I'm bad at things, because it's the most exciting time until you hit the upper echelons of something where you can really get creative and really like go off in crazy directions and intuitively understand that this crazy direction you're going off in is going to work just because you know what you're doing inside and out and can do weird things.
Yeah, so side discussion. One of my guilty pleasures is watching Claire from Bon Appetit try and recreate gourmet versions of products like Skittles or Twix or some kind of snack food. Because it's super interesting to watch, because this is a person that has mastery over those skills, trying to apply that knowledge towards, well, okay, if the pastry crust tastes or flakes a certain way, then I know it needs to be this kind of product. And it's interesting to watch that puzzle work out.
Yeah.
But I think like watching anyone who is a master of their craft is the same thing.
Yeah. And it takes like there are not a lot of things that I am good enough at or will ever be good enough at the same time to be able to do that kind of thing. You know, the people who can do that are people who have spent like huge amounts of time and effort getting that good. And like that mastery is so cool to see. And I love seeing it. And it's like my favorite cooking shows, for example, are the ones that are just like people who are good at something being good at something. Like I love watching shows that are people who are good at something being good at that thing, because it's like cool and it's inspiring and so on. But like I'm not, my interests are too broad, and I don't hit that intuitive, I understand this so well I can do crazy experimental stuff with it.
Yeah.
Because for me, the non-crazy experimental stuff, it's all figured out already.
Wow, it's a solved problem.
Yeah. I don't like resolving problems.
So what is one of your biggest fears?
Like rational or irrational?
I mean, I feel like they're both valid.
So I tend to look at things like games and systems and creative endeavors and market forces and businesses and so on and so forth at a super like 1,000-foot level and like zoom all the way. I try to understand what the view looks like for anything that I'm into. I try to understand what the view looks like when I zoom just way out. And like a lot of times that involves me, you know, coming up with ideas about things or like developing predictions about how things are going to go, or like how they might go, or like just coming up with ideas on how I would implement something or how it would work. And I have often had the experience where it does work, or I'm right about a particular thing, but like nobody sees it. And I worry constantly that I'm a victim of my own survivorship bias. And so I remember all of the things that I feel like I saw the big picture of and understood, and nobody listened, and then I was right in the end. Or like, hey, this was a creative idea and it was a good one and it actually worked, even though people said it wouldn't. Or whatever, like this improvement was an improvement, and you know, nobody, like I wasn't believed when I said this would probably make it better, but it was. And sometimes when you have somebody who can do that regularly and reliably, like that's a person who holds a vision and can see a vision, and part of it is communicating that vision to other people and you know, getting them on board even if they don't necessarily believe it, so that you can prove that you're right. Or maybe they're just crazy and maybe they have no idea what they're talking about, and like a stopped clock is right twice a day. And so as somebody who, like, I was a video game designer and I do creative stuff and come up with, you know, I was a game designer and now I am a product manager, and throughout my career my job has been always to come up with stuff before people, come up with stuff that either people didn't realize they wanted or before people realized they wanted it, because once people realize they wanted it, probably already exists. And maybe I'm terrible at it.
Well, and there's always the problem too that the first thing of its kind usually isn't the successful one. Like I can think of so many times where like a major phenomenon happens, but that isn't actually the first time that's existed. The first time came when the market wasn't quite ready for it. And it gets back to like what we were talking about last night with the Palm Treo versus the iPhone. Which are two devices that are very similar. It's just the Treo was trying to do something that the world wasn't ready for yet. And the same is true with like gaming. You think of Minecraft. Minecraft wouldn't have existed had it not stood on the shoulders of Infiniminer and Dwarf Fortress. But both of those weren't things that the market actually wanted.
Yeah. And it's also like, I'm also acutely aware that it's the height of arrogance to believe that you know better than other people all the time. And like, I have a very hard time rationalizing. It's literally my job and has been for my entire career to know what people want better than they do, or as well or better than they do. And yet that's also like I said, the height of arrogance.
Well, and I know that on certain occasions that dynamic has led to some strained conversations between you and I.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's like, it was like the conversation on the show last night where it's like, where you make the comment like, oh, or was it? No, it was after the show. Where it was like talking about PvP in games and how it's like, yes, you've got a vocal contingent of players that believe that, you know, an open PvP MMO is really the best you could possibly get to. It just needs to be made right. But that also exists in game development circles where you have game developers who firmly believe that you could make an open world PvP free-for-all MMO and have it be a sensation and bigger even than World of Warcraft, but you just have to make it right. And it hasn't yet been made right. And the immediate comment, which I don't disagree with, is like, wow, what an arrogant viewpoint, which it is. But it's also the thing you have to hold to create like big world-changing things. Like, I think they're wrong. And I think that they're provably wrong. I think that there's plenty of data that show that they're wrong, which is why it's so important to back up intuition with data.
And
but also, like,
I think there's like a slope there that like it can go the wrong way. Because then you end up with situations like Brad McQuaid and Richard Garriott, who have basically created the same game over and over and over.
Where it's like, oh, well, yeah, and it's like the idea being that if you could just get like, this idea is perfect. If we could just get it perfect, everything would be great, and everyone would understand. I mean, it's the common trope, like, oh, they don't understand me. If I could just get this thing to work, they would all see. They'll all see.
So we've kind of reached the point where we've run the traditional length of a show. Now is the point where I would normally ask, is there anything that you want to plug? I don't know if there is anything you want to plug, Tam.
No, I don't really have like, what I should have done and what I wish I had done was look up a bunch of, you know, various artists, like look up a bunch of like marginalized artists and authors and be like, rather than plugging my own stuff, go read theirs. And I forgot to do that before the show because I don't have anything of my own to plug.
So the good thing is this is going to release several weeks in the future. So if you want to do that, I will make sure it ends up getting posted along with the show.
So what I'll do is like what I would do instead is like I would say my plug would be like go read or watch or play something that people love that you think you might not, and maybe you'll be surprised, and maybe you won't be, and you'll learn something about yourself and your like the strength of your convictions in so doing, or maybe you will be surprised and you'll learn something about yourself and some totally new avenue of things you can enjoy, because like that's really what it's all about. It's having a good time. Well,
I'm hoping you enjoyed this process. It's like not as structured as it probably really sounds at first, but like a couple of those questions are grinders. And hopefully the audience enjoyed the show, and in a number of weeks, whenever this releases, I think it'll be a good one.
I'm so sorry that you had to that you just listened to like an hour of me babbling.
Like, I kind of knew what kind of conversation we would have, Tam.
I know, but they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah, but this is like, so this is a much more intimate back and forth. And when we're recording Aggro Chat, like, it is a group effort. And my hope is by like starting off with like some of the Aggro Chat folks, they'll see different nuanced sides of the people. And that's kind of the goal.
Yeah, I mean, now you know exactly how much of a navel-gazing wanker I am.
And on that note, I'm going to close the show. We will see you next time. Bye.
Good afternoon. Later.
Yeah. Time is irrelevant. Bye. 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 Is irrelevant. Bye.